Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Jarrett Ryan and I'm the ABB Brand Manager at Amber Technology. Hosting today's webinar is Ian Harding from ABB Australia. Ian is the Smart Buildings Product Marketing Manager and a certified KNX tutor. This is webinar number 3 in an ongoing series of webinars co-hosted by ABB Australia and Amber Technology. In today's webinar, we'll delve into the use of the ABB iBus tool for commissioning and maintaining DALI networks. This webinar follows on from our recent introduction to DALI webinar. If you missed that webinar, you'll find that recording on the Amber Technology YouTube channel, organised into an ABB playlist. This is a 1-hour webinar with Q&A, so drop your questions into the Q&A panel and Ian will answer them at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll hand over to Ian.
Thanks, Jarrett, and hi everybody. Great to see people turning up on a Monday afternoon. Sometimes it's tough on a Monday, but we have to do what we have to do. As Jarrett said, this is the second part of our delve into DALI. I'll start off with a reminder of what we looked at last time, and then I'll start looking at some of the software tools, in particular the iBus tool, and show you how to use the iBus tool when commissioning and trying to sort out issues that are happening on your DALI line. So without much ado, I'm going to kill my camera because, as you know, it's school holidays and there's too many people streaming, so I need to keep bandwidth down a little bit, but let's see if we're okay. If everybody can see me, I guess we're all okay. So, great. Now, just like I said, I have a few slides here just as a reminder of what we looked at last time. Just really a brief overview of KNX and DALI and what it's all about and what we can do with it. So, we'll get this working. So, as we know, DALI is the worldwide standard. There's millions and millions of DALI fittings and lights installed throughout the world. It's everywhere at this stage. So the installation and commission with the iBus KNX, it's really seamless and easy thanks to sort of our experience and standardization that we've spent many years working on it. I think I first started working with DALI gateways probably about 15-16 years ago, and since then they've sort of stepped on a lot from where they initially were. I mean, in the beginning we had the DALI 1 standard, which, while it was good and it allowed us to start controlling lights, also had its own challenges in that devices weren't certified and it sort of became a free-for-all with manufacturers of what they did with the standard and caused a lot of issues for us trying to control DALI fittings. After that stepped on to DALI 2, where we're at now, and as part of the DALI 2 standard, you have to sort of submit all your equipment to the DALI Association just to get it verified that it sticks to the standard. And that's the way it is now. It's tightened down the protocol, it's tightened the standard up, and it means we have better control over DALI. And of course, all of our DALI gateways now are certified to DALI 2. And it really means that, setting up a DALI system, controlling a DALI lighting system is a lot easier and a lot better than it used to be. Just a quick look at the DALI standards. The DALI protocol is a slow bus and it's only at 1200 bits per second. And this often will give rise to what's called the Mexican wave. And if you think of a big room, you might have a big office, open area office, maybe 40-50 lights in it. And if you start controlling those lights individually, because of the bus speed, the fittings will actually turn on one after the other, and there'll be a noticeable delay between, say, the first one and the 40th one turning on. How we get around that is we create DALI groups, and we just send a DALI group command to the fittings. And once the fittings receive that command, they will all turn on at the same time. Of course, they receive the command at the same time, so this helps. From that, then we can create scenes. But even better now is that with DALI 1, we had a single master-slave system without collision control. DALI 2 is enhanced on that, so now we have multi-master systems with collision control, 64 slaves and 64 controllers on our system. And as you know, installation is easy due to the free wiring topology of a DALI system. As long as we're up to 300 meters and it's non-polarity sensitive 2-wire cable, everything should be fine. If you saw the way I have the things connected here on my floor, you know, once you have electrical connectivity, it doesn't really matter. The system just works and everything is fine. One thing to remember though is that the DALI voltage itself that you'll see in the DALI bus is generally between 12 volts and 20.5 volts. You'd expect to see about 16 volts at any fitting. If you go to the furthest extent of the fitting of the network, always measure there and see what the voltage is there, because once you slip below 12 volts, you're going to start having problems and the system will not work properly. Just a quick look again at how we control a DALI system. So on the left-hand side, we have the KNX network, and the KNX network sending commands such as switch and dim to the DALI fittings, goes through the DALI gateway, and the DALI gateway stores the map of our DALI network and what we have installed. Within there, you can see we have a broadcast all, we have individual control, group control, and light scenes for up to 16 scenes. So in effect, the DALI gateway is our gateway between the KNX and DALI world, and it controls everything and makes our life so much easier. Here's a quick recap of all our DALI gateways that are available, starting with the DGS 16411. It's a single line DALI gateway with 64 devices and 64 individual addresses with 16 groups, and we can also control DALI emergency lighting. The DGS 26411 expands on that by having 2 channels on it, and we can have 64 fittings on channel A and channel B. If we start looking then at the premium gateways, we have a 1-channel and a 2-channel premium gateway. But what we start looking then is we've sort of like DT8 color control. We have extra applications for human-centric lighting, for load shedding, for sequences, and all this extra stuff is buried into the DALI gateway. If I look then at our DGS 81, that's one of our oldest devices, and we in fact control 16 devices per channel with up to 8 channels, and it's just broadcast on the channel. So in some small offices, this is a very useful device because it means that for the maintenance teams, there isn't a whole lot to do. They can just stick a fitting onto a line. They don't need to program it. They don't need to connect it to a group or connect it to a scene. They just switch the channel on and off. And then we have the DALI light control for constant light control. Comes in 2 variants. We have the DIN rail version and the sort of version in a box, as I call it, which can go anywhere and be mounted anywhere, and is really useful to get you out of trouble in some situations. In a DALI network, of course, the DALI gateway acts as the master, and it transfers commands across from KNX to DALI and gives us the status back. And it really is the brain of the system. So there will be cyclical queries sent to all DALI devices, and this is how the DALI network works. It's a constant query answer network. So the DALI gateway will start off with device 0, device 1, device 2, and it will go all the way up to device 63 and then start again. And it is a constant pole network, so there's always constant chatter on the line. And this sometimes you'll see if there's an error on the network, or maybe if, say, a lamp fitting goes down, you'll see the delay in the query and the answer coming back because we don't really know about it until we ask the fitting what's going on in the network. So it's constant, and it's a constant address, and it's a constant continuous 24/7. If we look at the time between queries on a network as well, some of the older devices used to have problems if you query them too quickly, and I'm going back maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, where the EEPROMs in the devices weren't as powerful as they are now. So you did have issues. So you can now in ETS, when you're programming your DALI gateway, you can set up a default delay between each query. If you set to 2 seconds and everything's fine, it works okay. DALI commands, of course, are all determined by the standard IEC 62386, and you can see the list of commands there. I won't say too much more about this, just to be aware that there's all different types of commands. We query status, query control, we send values, there's all the different versions and different commands that are available. I just won't bother with that. When I want to look at a system then, and I want to look at diagnostics, and I want to actually know what's happening, I need to do two things then. On my laptop, I will need to connect to the KNX line. Once I've connected to the KNX line, I can look at the group monitor, the bus monitor, and the KNX line. I can see the commands coming backwards and forwards from the presence detectors, from the switches, from the screens, from wherever we're getting telegrams on the KNX network. So I can just connect to that network through an IP router, my IP interface. However, once I sit onto my KNX network, I'm there and I can query the DALI gateway and sit looking at it. Of course, then I'll also have to look at the DALI line itself. So you can get a DALI USB interface, as a lot of the manufacturers sell this, and you can sit that directly onto the DALI line, and you can look at all the queries, you can look at all the commands, you can look at everything that happens on the DALI line. So you can map between KNX commands being sent and DALI commands being sent, and then you can see the reply status coming through, and it will be fed back through the gateway back into the KNX world. And this leads us into where we're going today now, which is to look at the iBus tool. So the iBus tool, it's a tool that ABB developed many years ago. And what it does is it enables us to query the DALI line directly when we connect to the DALI gateway. You'll connect once you get onto your KNX line, you can tunnel straight to the DALI gateway. In the example here, you can see we're connecting to device 1547, and we can then talk to that device, and we can look at it, and we can set its groups. We've full command on it. Or just a quick slide there. So there's just what it looks like. And with that, then I'm going to get out of my presentation for the moment and go and look. Well, first things first, the first question I'm going to answer is, where do I get my DALI tool? If you see here, I've gone to abb.com/KNX, which is our home page for all of our KNX devices. You can see as I scroll down here, we've engineering tools, brochures, there's additional material. Training and qualification is handy because a lot of webinars are recorded and placed on there. And you've all the other stuff, you've case studies, ETS data, and tooling overview. Very useful, remember that and bookmark that. But what I'll generally do is I'll go in and look for all available products. And if the internet's okay, we'll get in there nice and quick today. We just have to wait a second. Yep, and there we go. This search, by the way, if you're looking for any KNX device, it's a very intuitive search. It's a great way to do it. If you can't remember the DALI device name, just type in DALI. And if I type in DALI, it goes off and it comes back with the DALI gateways it knows. So I'll click on the 2-channel DALI gateway here, and it'll bring me direct to it. I click again, and I can connect straight to its web page. And this is where I want to show you where to get the iBus tool software, because once you're connected here onto the DALI page, of course, we've all the useful information about it. In the download section then, we can then scroll through the various different sections. If you're ever looking for manuals, certificates, or anything, everything lives in here. And of course, there's a software section, and in the software section is where you will download the iBus tool. Remember that is where you'll find it, and it lives on the DALI gateway page. It's easy to find, as well as the application software if ever you should need it. So I've got the software, I've connected it, I've installed it onto my computer. Here's the front page. So I'm on the front page now of my DALI gateway, of my iBus tool. And from here then, I can connect to devices. You can see the 2 green ticks here will tell me if everything's up to date. If there's a new update waiting, you can click here, download the update and install it. You'll have no problems after that. If I want to connect to the devices, I can click on the connect. And of course, you see we have connected device, we have demo, we have IP devices. So I can even look at my network here. And if I have any IP routers or IP interfaces, you can see I have one here. It will connect to my line and it will tell me if everything's okay, if the firmware is up to date. It'll give me the IP addresses of everything. Everything's okay. But really what we want to do today is connect it to devices. So first thing you'll have to do when you install it new is you'll have to go into your connection manager and set up a connection. You can see I'm going via USB here because I have all sorts of stuff connected, and it was just handier for me to do this today. And especially as well, having a corporate laptop that sometimes doesn't like using IP for KNX connections. So once I go in here, you can see I give a name. I can create a new connection, give it a name, and of course I can connect via IP if I want or not. But in this case, I'm going USB. It tells me it's connected via my USB interface. I can test its connection. Everything's fine, and I can save it. Once that's okay, I can directly enter the device address of the device I want to connect to. You can see over the time I've been playing with this, and I've all different devices in my recently used list. But I know today I'm going to connect to this DALI gateway, so I can connect to it. So we establish the connection. We can look at the detail data, and you can see how it's downloading all the information directly from the DALI gateway. Just takes a few seconds, and it will get everything now for us. And there you go. We've connected. So now it'll read all the information from the DALI gateway, and it's going to present it to us here in this dashboard, which is nice and handy. So what we can see across the top is we can see that there's 14 DALI devices connected to my line, 14 monitored. I have a conflict here, and I just, what's that conflict? We'll have a look at that in a minute. If I have any lamp faults or ballast faults or any DALI faults, they'll appear here too. So if something's not working as it should, we will see an issue. Everything is here plain, simple, easy, right in front of you. We can see our power supply is green, everything's okay. Manual operation is not locked. Manual operation is not active. And memory space is barely used in this device. You see these section here is all grayed out because we can't click on it yet because we have to go to configuration mode. And the whole idea behind that is that we stop people coming in here, just click, click, click straight away, and suddenly they've connected to your office and suddenly there's lights going on and off all over the place and people are screaming, people are like when their lights start going on and off unexpectedly. So we have to go to configuration mode, and I'll show you in just a second. So I can also generate a report of my DALI line, and it will save it out to a report for me as and when I started the DALI gateway. So let's look at the configuration mode. So if I go to configuration mode, it tells you to be careful. The tool interferes with the existing installation. Make sure security measures are taken. Just be sure before you go in here and start clicking things that you're not going to upset too many people. So I click OK, and now I can select everything here. So when I go into my DALI line, click on this one, you can see here's my DALI ballasts that have been discovered on my network, okay? So on my DALI line, when I select one of these devices, they will now turn on to 80%. And when I deselect it, it goes back off. So I'll be able to select my ballasts and see my ballasts as I walk around the room. Sometimes when I've been help guys commissioning on site, I just go into an open plan part of the office. Maybe there's a presence detector in the ceiling or whatever, and I can connect my USB straight onto the KNX line there. And I can sit in the office and see what everything's doing, and I can monitor all the lights and see what's happening. We also have selection mode, just switches the lights, and the fade time is 2 seconds. And once you apply it, anything you've changed here will be applied. If I look back to the DALI line itself, we can see I have all my devices here. I have, say, my kitchen group is set to those 4. My first floor is set. I've nothing connected to my hall. And this is where my conflict is, because when I configure the device in ETS, I've told it that I'm setting all the DALI devices up my line in DALI groups, which is well and good, and it's happy days, everything, we can work DALI groups. However, what the error was telling me a minute ago is that there's something wrong between the programmed configuration and what's actually on site. And the error here is that we have programmed this to be all groups. However, these ballasts here are not yet in a group. So that's the error that I'm seeing back out to the front. If I go back to here, this is the conflict I'm seeing, is that we've programmed the system, we've told it we're expecting groups, and yet we have devices that aren't a group. Now, it's very simple to fix. I can select a group. This plus in the corner here is where I add devices to my group. So all those devices are added to my group. I can deselect it now, and now they're all looking happy. And now my problem out the front here is gone. Everything's working now and everything's as it should be. So I can click on my groups then, and I can see in my office, I can see wherever I'm working, whatever I'm doing. I can go through the building and I can group the lights and I can see what's coming on and off all the time. Everything's easy to work. Okay, that's the first step, and that's the easiest thing to do, is how to set up my groups and what to do. And actually you can see these names here. I have hall, I have first floor, I have kitchen. They're programmed in ETS. So I can go back to ETS and I can look at my DALI gateway and I can look at my parameters. Just give me a sec, and I can look at line A, and I can look at the groups. I can look at the groups, and I can look at group 1. There's my kitchen. Group 2 is my first floor. Group 3 is my hall. So as I create these group names here, they will propagate into here, and all the groups will set up for me. And it's really handy then, because you're not trying to figure in your head or trying to remember what was that group, what was that name called, or whatever. It's fine. Everything works, and it works very well. So you can see now all my groups and everything is set up. But there's a few things we can do here. We can look at, oh, by the way, we can also look at down here, all the little icons on the devices. The menus down here will tell you all the little icons and what they're all for and what we're doing with them. So all the information is here for you. Yeah. Now, a few things to check now, because we've all these buttons over here to play with. So first thing we can do is you can do the broadcast on and off. And the broadcast on and off actually turns on all the lights behind me. Yeah, so everything comes on, everything comes off. It doesn't show anything here, unfortunately, because we haven't clicked them here. But we can broadcast on and off if we want to test the floor. If we have a DALI fitting now is in the wrong group or is the wrong device, or yeah, okay, I have the wrong address. I can sort of say this fitting here, number 8, wasn't supposed to be in the hall. It was supposed to be device number 31. So I can drag and drop it. It won't let me drag and drop it to change the address while we're in monitoring mode. So I can go, okay, I can clear the device monitoring here. It does that. It talks to the devices, talks to the network, comes back to me in a minute. And I'll be able to readdress that device now, because that device now should have been, I don't know, group item 25, and this should have been 28, or, you know, depending on how our network is mapped and depending how our office layout is, we may want to change the numbers and change where they are. So I can look at my group now and I can say, okay, these guys are the wrong actual ones, shouldn't be in my hall. Now I can add these guys to it, and 25, 26, 27, 28 are now the correct fittings in my hall. So when I want to readdress a DALI fitting, I can just drag it and drop it around here where I want. And it's an easy way to address DALI fittings. I don't have to do anything else. It's done straight away. I don't have to connect to a DALI line. I have nothing else to do. So that's the simplicity of this, is that we can drag and drop wherever we want, and we can create all the groups. You know, you walk into an office space, and when DALI has randomly addressed all the devices with the initial startup, I can drag and drop them all so they all make sense afterwards. And once I update my documentation, everything will make sense and everything will be clear. But what if I think of something else? And what if I go, okay, this device here has an address, and I want to clear the address off it. Well, that's no problem either, because we have these buttons up here. We can clear group memberships, and we can reset a single device. So first of all, I can clear the group membership just to show what happens. And remember, his color changes now because he's now not part of a group. And of course, back out the front, we now have a conflict because we have a device on our network that's not part of a group when we initially programmed it and told the system to expect it all to be part of a group. Yeah. So we can see that. Next thing I can do, if I want to clear that device and say, oh, I want to clear his DALI address, reset him. Let's just reset him. It's annoying us. There's a problem. I can click the button and it will be reset. So it goes to the device, it will talk to it, and bang, it's gone off our network now. Of course, now we have another challenge comes up, unaddressed devices. Okay. So when we get unaddressed devices, what we can do is trigger DALI addressing. I can trigger DALI addressing. Doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes it a minute or two. So what I'm expecting it to do now is to give it the first free address, which in their case is number 5. I'm crossing my fingers now and hoping it does, and there it is. Yeah. straight in at number 5. Just have to wait for it to finish. And there we go. There's no more DALI unaddressed devices. System's okay. And here's our device back as number 5. So you can see that when I add a new device, even though I may have wanted it to sit here at 28, I've reset it, I've readdressed it, and DALI generally will throw it in as the first free device. So just be careful of that when you're adding new devices onto a network. And I know you can get in new installations, you can get a lot of this sort of, let's call it challenges. That'd be nice. And the challenges are that as the electricians are switching breakers and boards on and off, fittings appear and disappear. And the DALI gateway, depending on how the wiring is and what the electricians have done, you could end up with 3 fittings with the same address, or you may end up with fittings, God knows where, they're all over the place. If I end up with multiple, in a new installation, if I end up with multiple devices and I might have 3 devices claimed to be number 5, I could have all sorts of issues. Everything could be messed up. We can just go and reset all the DALI devices. And if I reset all the DALI devices, that will just clear the whole network. I will have unaddressed devices, trigger DALI addressing, and it will just map them out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It may not be in the sequence you want. If it's not in the sequence you want, what you can then do is drag and drop the devices to where you want them. Yeah. And believe me, trust me, when you're on site, generally this takes 5-10 minutes. That's all it takes. It sounds a long-winded way to do it. Of course it is, because I'm sitting here describing it. But if you're on site, you clear all the DALI devices, you readdress them. It's going to take 5 minutes, and then you just drag and drop them to where you want them, and you can organize them any way you want. And when you're finished that, then of course you can just add them all back into your groups, and that's it done. Yeah. So we can clear grouping, we can clear addressing, we've all these sort of things. I mean, at least one device is burning in. If we say, excuse me, remember old fluorescent tubes, we had to burn them in, turn them on full power for the first, I can't remember what the figure was at this stage, but you weren't supposed to dim a fluorescent tube for so many hours after it was powered on, because you had to let all the gas evaporate in the tube and you had to let it get up to temperature, and you didn't get any cold spots or anything in it. So the whole idea with burn-in was the first, maybe it was 100 hours, I can't remember, you could not dim it. So you would set the device to say this device is burning in, and it would not allow you to dim it for that period of time. So you can see that. So you can see DALI line faults. You can see if we have overlapping groups, and if we have more than 64 devices, the network will tell you. So all this information in here is all designed to make the DALI line easy to manage. And you can see in my case, I've added 2 emergency lights in here. Now, if I go and look at the overview of my line, you see now it'll poll all the devices and grab all the information. So from this now, I can see my groups, yeah, with my group names. Tell me what device type is connected to them. So DT1, of course, is our emergency fittings. Gives us the device address. Yep, that's all handy. What functions are there? You can see more details from the emergency lights are on the emergency lights page. What we can do now is I can switch on, say, the group, and I can see the group react from here. I see the lights go on, and you see the little delay then between me hitting the button and the answer coming back. That's the Mexican wave. I'm switching on the group, or I'm switching on the lights, and the delay comes back. There's a slight delay on the DALI line, but that's just the DALI line is a slow bus. It works. It doesn't matter really in the end. Yeah, and again, when I switch them off, you'll see a slight delay as well. But that's just the communications, querying the line, sending the command, querying the line, and getting you the answer. Yeah, so you can see now there's no burn-in active, there's no forced lock. We can look at the details for each group. I can look at the details, say, for group 1, operating hours. I can actually set the operating hours. Burn-in is inactive. I can, depending on how I've configured my ETS project, I can activate it, I can deactivate it. And then if I have any additional functions like staircase lighting or slave functions, we can do that. We've no lamp fault, no ballast fault, forced lock, and that's okay. And we can go here and we can test the fittings, and we can make sure that we have the right fittings. The lights will come on, to whatever level we bring them to, or we can just turn them on and off. Everything works fine from here. So I can do that with any device on the line. Yeah, I can do it device by device. I can look at the operating errors. We can check and we can just look at, whatever we need to look at in our system. See, that lamp's actually been on a lot more time. And if we had the premium DALI gateway, I could go in here and I could change colors on the fitting, and I could set the color to whatever I need it to be. I could take the hue and the saturation. I could look at all those values, and I can change the color of my lights here till I find what I want. I can remember the settings and set that into maybe a scene as well. So, it's really helpful for sort of stuff like that. When I look at the emergency lights then, it queries the emergency ballast. Now, unfortunately, the batteries I have here are old batteries. They're all dead. But I could come here and I could just start a function test site for my fittings. So a function test starts, and a function test briefly goes to see are all the devices okay? Is the lamp okay? The lamp is no lamp failure, no converter failure, didn't time out, but the battery didn't pass because the battery is knackered. I can even go to a partial duration test. And again, because I've no batteries, the batteries will fail, and it's just not going to work for me. But unfortunately, that's all I can do. You can see in this case, we've got nothing else has failed here. Nothing has passed. So you can see exactly what's happening here with all your emergency lights. If you have to do that with all your emergency lights, you can test them all from the iBus tool as well. It's a really, really handy tool for that. So really, that's all the general operation around a DALI gateway and what we have and what we need and how it works. And once you get used to using this tool, you'll find that it's really, really, really quick commissioning. It's quick to commission 2 lines. You probably do it in 15, 20 minutes. And I really think it's a great tool. It's always been updated. There's always been new features added to it. Keep an eye out. If I go back home now, log out of this device, I can disconnect. Go back to connect. We also have demos set up for all of our other devices, so fan coils for blinds. So I could just show you here, when I have a blind set up and I'm using a blind controller, I can test all the functionality of the blind from here. And this is just a demo to show you how to use it and what you can do with it. But it's really, really, really handy. If I have blinds if I go into a house and I have blinds set up, I can program the blinds. I can set the up-down times. I can check wind alarms. I can check all that sort of stuff to check that the blinds operate correctly, and everything works the way that we want it to. So I think really that's the basics and that's most of what I want to show you about the iBus tool. Really handy, really quick for commissioning, and it's really, really simple to use. Give it a go. Look at it in demo mode, connect up a DALI fitting and a DALI gateway, and you'll see straight away how it all works. 2 other tools I want to quickly show you while I'm here and I have your attention is, one is the firmware update tool. So we have the ABB firmware update tool. And again, if you don't know where to find apps, you can go into the KNX website and you can go into the App Store in the KNX shop. Yeah. You can go in here and look for ETS apps. I've gone in there and I've searched for ABB, and in there I have the firmware update tool. Yeah. So that tool's available for free here. You go through the sequences, you buy it, you download the tool, install it into ETS, and it works as an app. There's that tool and the update copy convert. They're 2 really, really useful tools that I recommend you download and install. If I show you the firmware update tool first, so I've installed the tool, but generally it'll come in when I install it. I'll have a panel, and in my ABB panels, then I have firmware update and update copy convert. Yeah, so those 2 tools are very handy. So when I have the firmware update loaded, I can check the devices. I have a small little project here. I can ask it to go and check the devices, whatever devices it can see on my network. It will then go and check the status. Yeah. And you'll see here, I always leave a bus monitor or something open here to have a look. You can see all the communications happening away. Everything's chit chat away. But you can see for this DALI gateway, which in fact is the only physical device I have connected on my network, you can see here that the firmware is up to date. Yeah. So it's equal version. It's the latest version there is. Once you have that, everything's fine. From time to time, there are updates for devices. I mean, we do get bug fixes. We do get new features added. Even some of the new relay devices have had new features added via firmware updates recently. So, you know, it's a thing to look out for. First thing I'll always ask if you tell me you're having a problem with a device is check the firmware version and check the application version. Just make sure those two are up to date first before you do anything else, because there's always a chance that the issues you're having have been fixed previously. And, you know, especially with old projects, KNX projects can hang around for 5, 10, 15 years. I've worked on projects that are 15, 20 years old, added new devices to them, found there's problems on the old devices that were there, and a software update just fixed all the problems that they were having. So, you know, it does happen from time to time. These are software devices like your phone, like your watch nowadays, like all these devices. From time to time, we need an update. And just quickly to flash back to here, if you remember on the DALI Gateway page, you will often see release notes or things like that. If there's anything here, it will be posted. There will be information posted here about release notes or any technical bulletins. You can see the last one was 2021. So just time to time you get things. And then 31st of the 1st, 2004, there's a release for the iBus tool was updated. So from time to time, it doesn't hurt to go and check your software versions and just make sure everything's up to date. Okay, so that's the firmware update tool. You can do it from here. You can update. If I selected, if that needed an update, I just tick the box, click the update firmware, and away it'll go. It takes about 10 minutes to update a DALI gateway. After that, you will have to do a full application download, but everything will be up to date then, and you'll be sure that you'll have the latest software and you should have no bugs or problems with the system. The second tool to quickly show you is the update copy convert. So again, I can go to my panels, I can go to ABB, update copy convert. Okay. Please close the app here to avoid limiting performance. You know, of course, with all these apps, they like to talk on the bus and the network. So if you're not using an app, don't leave it open. It's bad practice. Just close it if you're not using it. But what I can do here is I can look at my two DALI gateways I have here. So I can look at this DALI gateway, okay? That's the one we played with 1115 with the iBus tool a second ago. And I can look at his application over here and I can see the program version is 1.4, which is the latest one, the latest and greatest. But I can also look at this guy. Oh, don't tell me ETS is going to crash. Now there's ETS. Oh, looks like it's going to do something on me. Well, this application version is 1.3. So if I'm in a project and I have, you know, maybe the project is 5, 6, 7 years old, and maybe there's older, maybe this device is in there. I'm not saying that you have to go back and update the firmware and devices or application devices. And certainly I wouldn't advocate, you know, keep these all up to date. But if you're on site and there's an issue on site, first thing to do is update the application, update the firmware. Yeah. And you can see here now, I've selected the device and he's telling me now that there's an update available. The trick to this is if all my DALI gateways were 1.3, then I wouldn't see that was an update. I have to add the new device in, the 1.4, which is this guy. I have to add that in, and then it'll tell me there's an update available. So I can click on update here, and he can tell me the device to be updated is that one, and I want to update it to version 1.4. Yeah, I can start the update, and it will update the application. Doesn't take long. Yeah, and now if I look at 1.1, his application now is 1.4. So the application file has been updated for the device and everything else will be the same. All the settings will be the same. Nothing will have changed. Everything will be hunky-dory. Just do a download and everything will be fine. You don't have to worry about it. You do also have the option for copying channels. Say DALI output A can copy to B, so I can retain group addresses. I can do all sorts of stuff. Where the copy channels is really handy is where you're configuring maybe a 24-channel relay device. If you're, you've all those channels, you set channel A up the way you want the channel to be. How can I quickly copy the configuration to all the other channels? Well, I can go in here, copy channels, and set all the 24 channels up as the same as channel A. Very easy to do. I can export and import settings for a device. I can exchange channels. I can copy channels. And of course, I can convert channels as well. I have nothing compatible now because, of course, everything's up to date. But, we can copy between devices. Sorry, I can convert. So I can copy from this device to that device. I can copy all the settings, all the group addresses, everything I want from one to the other. I can start the conversion. It will copy everything across from, where is it going, from 15 to 1 now. Yeah. So I've updated the application file. I've copied everything from one to the other. I'd say before you use this, have a bit of a practice with it just to see exactly how it works. It's not that hard to use, but be careful. Always make sure you have backups before you start messing with your projects and before you start doing things. So I think that's really all of what I wanted to show you today. Just a reminder on DALI commissioning, DALI tools, how we can use the iBus tool to make life easier. And then just a quick snippet on how we can run firmware updates, and we can use the update copy convert. There are 3 really useful tools that you'll find you can use time and time again in a project. If you have any issues or you need any more training or need any more help, just let Jared know, and we can set up and we can talk and we can show you how we need to do things. And with that, I think I'm finished for today. And Jared, I'll hand back over to you.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, there's a couple of questions that have come up here. First one, the iBus tool. Is that local and remote? Will that work locally and remote?
You have to be able to connect to the line, to the KNX line. If you can connect to the KNX line, if you can VPN onto the line, or how are you going to get onto the line? Once you can access the line, it will work.
Okay, terrific. All right, so that could be done remotely then as well. And then the other one that I have here is how do we manage the DALI emergency light testing?
What a lot of people do is they use third-party software. You have NetX automation, you have iceberg, you have other visualizations like that. And we've done that in many projects where we'll set out a whole building and we'll schedule the DALI emergency light testing from there. So you'll have a visualization that'll map your whole building for you. You'll be able to test the DALI lights, the emergency lights in groups. So I might say, I'll test the first floor today. Tomorrow I'll test the second floor. And it'll go off and automatically do it in the background. The DALI gateway will handle the communication with the emergency ballasts. It will tell them to start the test. And when it gets a report back from the device, it will take the information, send back a DALI telegram, and the software then can database all that. It can give you a start time, a finish time, what test was run, all the sort of information that's necessary to be done. And it can database that and then present a report. It can email reports and do all that sort of stuff as well for you.
That's terrific. Okay, well, that's the last of the questions, Ian. So thanks for hosting today, and thanks everyone for joining on this webinar. Today's webinar is recorded and will be uploaded shortly to the AMBER YouTube channel, along with the other ABB webinars that we've co-hosted. If you're interested in learning more about KNX and becoming certified together with ABB, we are co-hosting KNX certification classes around the country. We have classes coming up between now and the end of the year in both Adelaide and Sydney. So visit the AMBER Tech website, go to the ABB brand page, and you'll see info on there that you can click through. So once again, thank you, Ian. Thanks everybody for joining.